channel. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing?
Sure. Thanks for inviting me, Yoshi. I really appreciate you taking the time to invite me and to get a chance to
No,
speak to you all.
it's our absolute pleasure, seriously. Thank you, Roxanne, for making time. So normally we ask a couple of personal questions, Roxanne, so the audience knows you a bit better.
Mhm.
And then later we go to the business, more professional life lessons learned. That okay?
Sounds great.
All right, cool. So the first question, I we talk about different places that we live and we travel. I wanted to ask you if you could wake up anywhere in the world, Roxanne, tomorrow, where it will be and why?
Oh, there's so many wonderful places in the world. I've had
Uh-huh.
the good fortune of traveling to a lot of really wonderful places. So,
Hmm.
you know, probably right now, I would choose to wake up and this would probably change again tomorrow, but for now, I would
Uh-huh.
choose to wake up in London. I love London.
London.
It's one of my favorite cities in the world, and
All right,
the summer
great.
in London is so beautiful. I'd love to go there and see my friends and have a great cup of tea.
All right, very nice, cool. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I love London. It's a very walkable city,
Mhm.
and it's very nice. It has everything. Mhm. All right, cool. And the second question will be, what was your happiest moment in your life, and what is the first thing that came to your mind?
Oh, well, it's just going to be a very standard answer, but when my son was born, and I
Uh-huh.
feel very fortunate to have my
Uh-huh.
little boy
Okay.
who's 4 years old now.
Okay, cool. What is his
Mm.
name?
His name is Aldo.
Aldo. Okay,
Mm.
Aldo. Oh, that's cool. Okay, ready. Thank you so much. So now we're going to the interview related questions, Roseanne. And I wanted to know you a bit better. So if you have anyone who really admires you and highly respects you and knows you very well, Roseanne, how will define who is Roseanne Nanninga?
As a person or a professional, I think you, people probably describe me as someone who is very caring and
Uh-huh.
generous with my time. I really value my friends and my family and spending time with them,
Uh-huh.
making sure I can be there for the people I most care about.
Uh-huh.
And that really extends to my work. I care really deeply about the mission of my work, trying
Uh-huh.
to make the world a better place for,
Okay.
the ways that I can affect it in terms of the environmental outcomes and the social outcomes.
Uh-huh.
And often I really treat my work as another important relationship in my life that I try to take care of and make sure that I am doing what I can to, honor the kind of mission and passion that I bring into my career.
Love it. I was going to ask you for your why and your purpose, but I think you have give us a summary there. I wanted to know, were you always like this, Roxanne, or there was a moment in time in your life that made you to go to this kind of career path and purpose and mission?
Yeah, really all my life. I think that when I was growing up, I there's no way I could have imagined this career that I have because it didn't exist, right?
Okay.
There wasn't like a sustainability professional that existed in the world at that time, right? Like this
Sure,
is
sure.
is a very new field. Even when I went into my graduate studies about 10 years ago,
Uh-huh.
a lot of the types of jobs that I've had didn't exist, right? But
Mm,
I have always had a motivation, like I said, like really a value set around trying to bring uh, solutions to the world. There's a lot of things that plague our society, and chief amongst those are climate change. And I think I can recall some very specific moments in my childhood where I was worried about it. Like, what are we going to do about global warming and climate change? And I think I just always felt a sense of I should be working on that. And whatever that looks like, I want to find a way to be working on that in my career.
uh-huh.
And I have just sort of followed a winding path to where I am now. And I think I'll continue doing that, just following wherever I think I can make the biggest difference.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm surprised that you mentioned your childhood. Like when I was on my childhood, I never thought about sustainability or anything about water. So I was wondering how did you come to know about this from your childhood? I was
uh,
wondering.
I think, I was very fortunate to grow up in a beautiful place in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, and
Uh-huh.
you're really surrounded by the natural world there. My family really cares about the outdoors. We spent a lot of time camping and hiking, and we even had like a big forest behind our house where I spent a lot of time. And I think, that just really stuck with me. And from that time, just was always tuned in to what was going on in the
Uh-huh.
natural world. I studied science in my undergraduate because I thought that would be the route to get into the world of working outdoors. I always wanted to be somebody out there, like a park ranger. I think I idolized the park rangers when I was a kid, like to go out, being in nature, helping to teach other people about nature. Um, and so I think those are some of the earliest threads that brought me into this work that I'm in
That's
now.
really cool. That's really nice. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you had a very early connection with nature.
Mhm.
And that's what moved you. Okay, and now I'm curious again. Are you still in touch because now you moved to from Seattle to this kind of nature life, or how do you live that nowadays?
Well, yeah, the many, many twists and turns that have brought me to where I am now. But as sustainability officer for a tech company that works with shrimp farmers, right? That's a
Hmm.
very um, odd niche in many ways. But
Uh-huh.
what brought me to that was, from my time as a child, kind of living in the woods, and then in college, really studying land-based science and ecology, and kind of studying the plants and animals, and particularly the plants of the forest. And
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
loved that type of work. I thought I would go into sort of food in agriculture because there's just an amazing amount of like land-based work to do there. And I still do some of that work, but so I kind of got in with food initially. Like it's just an incredible interface between food and nature,
Uh-huh.
um, and the way we grow food, right? The plants that we eat and the
Totally.
animals that eat those plants. And then when I was in my kind of early 20s, I took a job where I was a teacher on a sailboat. And the sailboat was called Around the Americas. Well, the expedition was called Around the Americas. And we traveled around North and South America and stopping along the way. And the intention of this expedition was to really raise awareness about ocean health and ocean sustainability issues. And
Okay.
I was the teacher on this expedition, and I had the great privilege of meeting with children and scientists and politicians all over the world, including Brazil and Chile and um,
That's really cool.
California, all kinds of wonderful places. And it was very inspiring and got me interested in the ocean, really looking at what how people depend on the ocean, and still very interested in food. So I got very interested in seafood
Uh-huh.
and fish. How do people catch fish? How do we sell fish? How do we buy fish? Um,
Uh-huh.
how do those of us who buy fish in a place like the United States, which may be very far away from where those fish were caught, how are the decisions we're making about the fish we're buying affecting the people and the places where those fish were caught? And um,
That's
that's
really
that's kind
interesting.
of how I got into seafood and seafood sustainability. From there, I've worked in a lot of different kind of pieces of the industry. I've worked at an environmental
Uh-huh.
organization, an international organization called Environmental Defense Fund. And then I worked at a large seafood corporation called Thai Union and Chicken of the Sea on the sustainability team. And then from there, have pivoted into this like tech side. But I really got excited to work with xpertSea because of the work that we do with the farmers. So
Okay.
bringing it again back to like, I care about the people who are making the food,
The source.
and how do
Mm.
we help them make better decisions so they can have a lighter impact on the environment.
All right. Very interesting. That's amazing. That's amazing, Rosanne. I was curious, what are the main key practical things that you implement in those places that you just described to improve the sustainability of growing these fish farms, it's called? Or, yeah? All
Yeah,
right.
in this case, it's shrimp, but you can
Shrimp farms.
either way, right? And
Okay, sorry.
that's okay. Yeah, so the shrimp farming has it's grown. Shrimp farms are kind of distributed all around the tropical
Okay.
world. Ecuador is actually where shrimp farming sort of began, and now you can find shrimp farms across Latin America, but also in Asia, Southeast Asia, and South Asia. So India, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam. These are all really big shrimp producing countries.
Uh-huh.
And, this industry has grown very, very quickly, which is exciting in the sense that a lot of people have built businesses and livelihoods. There have been a lot of new jobs brought to these parts of the world because of shrimp farming. Um, but it has also brought with it a lot of environmental damage, right? So
Mm,
shrimp farms originally were built on top of mangrove forests. And if you know anything about mangrove forests, they are a very important ecosystem. They prevent floods, they provide habitat. There's a huge amount of biodiversity in these places. They also sequester carbon at a higher
uh,
rate than any other ecosystem on Earth. So they're
all right.
tremendously important,
Uh-huh.
but the shrimp farms then, were cutting down the forests to put the ponds in these areas. So that caused a lot of damage to those areas for the
Mm,
water quality, the biodiversity, and then their carbon sinking potential, right? So that's
sure.
the biggest issue, is kind of where they've been sited. But the industry has largely started moving upland back out of the forests and just kind of pumping water. So some of that is being improved already with countries changing the way they permit the land given to shrimp farms, right? So some of that is naturally improving.
Uh-huh.
One of the things that we're doing in regards to that is helping um, shrimp farmers to implement better technology on their farms.
Mm,
So shrimp you have to feed, and feed becomes one of the biggest carbon intensive parts of growing shrimp. Even though
mm,
shrimp
mhm,
themselves are a pretty sustainable animal, they're small, they're cold blooded,
uh-huh.
they live in water, so they don't they convert feed into human edible protein at a really efficient rate. But
Uh-huh.
the feed itself can cause a lot of impacts. So you try to do what you can to help them reduce the amount of feed they use, and then make sure that the shrimp are eating it so it doesn't turn into waste in the pond.
Ah, interesting.
So
How do you
what
do
we're
that?
you can give there's technologies, believe it or
Uh,
not, that help them um, automatically feed the shrimp in the farms. So they use hydrophones, many of these pieces of equipment. It's like a
uh-huh.
microphone in the water that listens to where the shrimp are and when they are hungry. There's little audible signals. And then the feed will be distributed to that area and at that time so that the shrimp are, they're going to eat feed more efficiently.
That's so
And
cool.
xpertSea doesn't make that equipment, but what we do is we offer a software so that farmers, what they do is they take a photo of the shrimp in their pond. They take a little sample, they take a photo using their phone, and that inside the software, there's AI that uses computer vision and machine learning to interpret just the photo of the shrimp to say how big those shrimp are, how much they weigh, how fast they're growing. Um, and you can also help the farmer understand like how well they're eating their food. Are they eating and growing the way they're supposed to, or are they not? And so through this combination of like our software technology giving them like eyes into the water and financing technology to farmers, like these automatic feeders, or helping them access electricity to power their farms versus like diesel fuel generators. We can
Mm,
help farmers reduce their costs
mm,
and reduce their carbon impacts of shrimp
mm.
farming, which is great.
Okay.
So xpertSea can kind of help them get all that information they need to have a better shrimp
Eh,
operation. Yeah.
Sustainability is always great, isn't it? It's always in the long term
Yeah.
profitable at the end, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's
These
the
things
funny
go
thing.
together
Uh,
completely.
uh,
And then what I was going to say, just to bring it back to the previous
yeah.
component of the mangroves, is we partnered with Conservation International, which is a big international
Okay.
conservation organization. Calling them
Okay.
a
Yes.
name. They we work with them to take, so when we help the farmers fund new technology, like I was describing, they, through their additional profitability, we help fund mangrove restoration. So we work with these organizations to rebuild mangroves where they were previously destroyed, and you can then uh, bring that into a more sustainable landscape for shrimp farming. So on the
That,
farm and around the farm. So there's a lot of ways that we're trying to help solve the problems in the
that's
industry.
beautiful. That's beautiful. By the way, I didn't tell you, but here in Fortaleza there is a lot of streams. I don't know
Oh
if you
yeah,
are
it makes
aware.
sense because you're on that side of Brazil, closer to Ecuador.
Yeah, I didn't know actually it was because of that you share now. But yeah, it's interesting. Okay, thank you so much. It's really, really interesting everything how it works, right? It's amazing that, that you get exposed to that. It's, all the logistics is just incredible. I was thinking, Roseanne, what is the main obstacle or challenge that you might have faced during this experience of yours in this world?
In my larger career or in xpertSea specifically?
Well, in the larger career or the other, whatever you want to share, or which
Mm.
one you think is better.
You know, I would say there are many challenges to
Sure.
implementing environmental sustainability and social sustainability in the world, um, because what we're talking about fundamentally is changing the systems that we depend on, right? Like
Mm,
whenever you're thinking about changing mm, the world for the better, or you're trying to reduce environmental impacts or help people improve their livelihoods, right? Any of these systems you're talking about, you have to consider all of the web of um, different factors involved in that system, right? So,
mm,
what are the economics involved? Why is it the price of the shrimp that's driving the types of workers that come, and maybe they are not paid what they should be, or they're migrant workers who are undocumented and not necessarily uh, accounted for, right? Those are systems that you then need to understand so you can help untangle that web.
sure.
And then the environmental challenges too, right? Like I was saying, you have factors for why shrimp were grown in a mangrove. What do they have to be grown there? Are there ways that we can move it to a different zone so that it is a better system? So there's science, there's politics, there's economics, and you really have to, as a sustainability professional, be willing to kind of dive into all of those different pieces of the world and find ways to bring it together to solve a problem. And
Mm,
I really love that. I think it's a very
it's
fun
fun.
space
Yeah.
to work in because I get to try all kinds of different things and talk to all kinds of people, which I love.
Yeah, and it's kind of encourage your growth mind, right? And system thinking. I was
Yes,
thinking, and you have a whole picture of how everything works, and that's why I was amazed to hear you, while you were sharing the story because it's fun. It's really fun.
it's never
It,
boring. It is never boring. You can always
no,
find every day something sort of new to work on, or there's some new problem to solve.
uh Yeah, because you think, streams are here, you can get it there, but nobody thinks, how it works and how they raise, and it's fun. Okay, thank you so much, Roseanne. And I was wondering, because at the end, this is the IPA revolution, right? And we're trying to redefine the business mindset. and it came to my mind, right? This politics and this changing of systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end, what this is what we want to do as well in our side, and more in the mentally and emotionally part. However, this is the resistance to change that many people that I'm sure you have experienced have, right? In
Mm-hmm.
organization, in governments, wherever you call it. So I was wondering what has been the best tools or practices or applications that you have gone so far that are most effective in your
Mm.
case.
That's a really good question
Thank
because
you.
it always depends on the people at the end of the
Hmm.
day, right? And their willingness to change.
Mm,
Um, so there's a lot of different ways that I have I have approached this, but I was reflecting on this recently and thinking about most of the time I think I start by working with people who are already share an idea right with me that like okay, it doesn't mean that we share a political point of view by any
mm,
means, but like we share a shared goal, right? We know we
mm,
want to, even in the business context, right? Like when I was at Chicken of the Sea, we were selling tuna. So our shared goal was to be able to have tuna to sell, right? And we can connect on that. So if it's a salesperson in the company, they want to be able to continue selling tuna, right? And I say,
uh,
great, we need to have tuna to catch. So that's like an easy inroad where you try to find a common ground. You say
mm,
the only way to make sure that we'll have tuna to continue catching and selling is by advocating for better catch limits, helping to make sure that there are good rules in place to for fishing, right? And that we're not over extracting this resource, and helping to make it feel approachable for people, I think is a really important first step, so that people don't get overwhelmed by the idea of sustainability. It can feel very big and
mm,
scary, but
mm,
if you start with a shared goal or a common purpose, and then work on something with somebody, and often it grows from there. People see what you're doing, they want to be part of it, and people come in. I really believe in creating inclusive spaces, where you don't say if you don't believe in this, you can't be part of it, right? That everyone has a role to play when it comes to
mm,
sustainability. And so I think it's everyone's job to make sure that we can find where somebody can contribute, and invite them in and help them feel like they can be part of it.
mm. Very good. I love it. Very good tips. All right. Because yeah, it makes a lot of sense, from the psychological point of view as well, and because that's what unite us and make us collaborate, right? This shared vision or goal or a purpose or mission. Very
Mm-hmm.
good. Thank you so much. And in order to implement that, right, I'm sure you may have found or got some challenges, right? And I was wondering, in your case, that you have to talk with several parties and stakeholders. What was the most challenging one, and what do you do?
The most challenging. I mean, there are so many, and I think that most of the time, as you said in your last question, Yoshi, like it comes down to people, and
Mm,
um, I would say sometimes the harder things to solve are actually the people-oriented problems, like the
mm,
social issues versus the
mm,
environmental issues. Having worked in
okay.
both, um, you know,
I see.
having conversations about like how inclusive is your team at work? How many women do you have working with you? How many people from different backgrounds do you have working with you? And then all the way, getting people to think about their supply chains. Like, what about the companies that you buy from? It's not only the environmental aspects, like, what are their carbon impacts, but like, how are those businesses operating in the world? Are they
Mm,
exploiting people? And those can be very hard conversations to have and very
mm,
uncomfortable conversations to have. People they don't always like to feel like they are part of perpetrating those types of issues, and so I try to approach them in like a problem solving mode where, like, I'm not saying you purposely don't have enough women working for you, but let's think about how we might find more women to work for you, right? Or
That's
let's try to,
beautiful.
right, like, how can we, I know you're not on purpose having a very high carbon impact. How can we solve this problem? What are some of the ways that we know your supply chain is having big impacts, and how can we solve those problems together? I think that's it feels like a less threatening approach, but you do, as a sustainability professional, I think it's your obligation to bring those things to their attention and help show them that, like, these are problems that need to be solved, and then invite them to help solve those problems.
I love it. Yeah, it's about asking questions to make them aware and sell themselves, as we can say. So you don't need to tell them that they can tell themselves, and they can buy
Mm-hmm.
in much easier.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah, yeah. I'm sure that there are many that or there are few, right? That you couldn't, they just maybe hard-headed or they just very resistant and they don't want, and that's okay.
But you keep
Okay,
at it. Like,
yeah, that's
it's not a
it.
reason to give up. I mean, I think
Yeah, of
anyone
course.
working in social or environmental change knows there's a lot of setbacks, but you have to just sort of keep on going, and
Mhm.
hopefully you change some minds and hearts just by doing the work.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, no, it's like coaching or emotional intelligence. There's some things that, not everybody buys in, and you need to look for these early adopters, I think, and those
Mhm.
the one that support are the most important, because those are the ones who later on are going to show that it works, it can change in a much better, group later on. So,
And the champions can come from unexpected places, I would say. It's not always the people you think.
mhm,
So, um,
mhm,
maybe that's an abstract sort of tip, but I would
okay,
say finding
sure.
the early adopters are not just the people who are on your side politically. They're not just the people who are um,
Mm,
working on your team already, right? There may be champions that share your point of view and share your goals that are very different from you, or in a very different part of the industry, or outside of that industry you're in altogether. But finding them is really worthwhile, right? And just look for them.
all right, very good. Yeah, I like this, and that's a unusual tip, I would say. And I was wondering where is this coming from, Roseanne?
Yeah, I have a lot of, in the seafood industry,
Mhm,
there are a lot of sort of curmudgeonly characters who are initially very resistant to any new thing or any change, right? Like fishermen are historic, just like as a group, often
mhm,
very uninterested in new things. And you come in trying to convince them that this new thing is going to change their life for the better. They're often going to say, "Get out of here." But if you come in talking to them about something they care about, right? They care about having fish to catch because that's their livelihood. And you say, I'm here to help make sure that you have more fish to catch. What's the problem that you're up against, and trying to help solve that with them. I think that's been just a very fruitful type of collaboration, rather than working with another conservation group and trying to come to the fishermen and again telling them, here's what I think you need to do to change, right? Always go to the producers or go to whoever it is that uh, you really need to partner with to solve that problem, and try to find
mhm.
common ground.
All right, I love it. That's, I think, very useful and practical tip. Thank you so much. We have half minute left, so I was wondering, Roseanne, do you have anything else you would like to share before we close down that we haven't commented on?
No, maybe I'll just reiterate one point to say
Uh-huh.
that
Sure.
I do I do feel very excited at this moment that, like, so many more people are coming into this sustainability field.
Mm,
I think it's such a great time to be entering this field from whatever point you've entered in your career, whatever your skill set is. and you can make a difference. Really just take the time to educate yourself, stay humble, and like solve problems, right? It's not going to happen unless we're all working on it together.
All right. I love that. Yeah, we are in this world all together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Conscious or not consciously aware of it, but we can all pitch in. So this is the last question I would like to ask you, Rosanne. If that's okay. If you had the possibility to leave a big message or a quote or any words that you want to the whole world, what last words will you leave?
Mm, I think it's a big question, but I think that we should remember to take heart. It is can be very hard to do systems changing work, but I
Uh-huh.
do really believe in the power of collaboration and the fact that the world is more connected now than we ever have been before gives me a lot of hope. So I think
Uh-huh.
it's important to not lose track of that. Don't go to your corners, right? Reach out and try to keep working, and so that we can keep solving the problems that are ahead of us, as big as they can be.
All right, very good. Thank you so much. So I think that's it, Rosanne. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yes, that's great. Thanks so much,
Thank you so
Yoshi. I
much.
really appreciate your questions. And
No,
thanks
thank
for
you to you.
everybody who's watching
Yeah,
for taking the time.
thank you to you, Rosanne. Thanks a lot. See you now. Bye bye.
Okay.